let's take this puppy around the block.
This is a roll from 15 miles an hour.
All right, guys, so here's what we're doing today. I have talked a little bit about the XLR and the Cadillac of what it is, but now what I want to do is give a detailed discussion as to what is the Cadillac XLR. I've posted a video in the past that talked about some of the issues I've had with it, but now I want to be positive. I want to talk about the things I like about it. So this is the 2008 Cadillac XLR-V. Starting with the rims on this thing. These are Bulgari rims. These are special to the V. If you get the XLR, you don't get these. But Bulgari is a famous watchmaking company, and it says Bulgari here on. Actually, it doesn't. It doesn't say Bulgari on the rims. It says it on the dash. I'll show you. So if you look here on the dash, right above the speedometer, it says Bulgari. And it only did this on, I think it was 2004 to 2008. The 2009s, it doesn't say that. But it's still the same design. It just doesn't say Bulgari. The big difference with the XLR-V is you get the supercharger. That is only on the V. You can buy this car without the supercharger. It will just be an XLR. They made that car starting in 2004 all the way to 2009. They only made the XLR-V from 2006 to 2009. This car is based off of the Corvette C6 chassis. So if you look at a C6, it's very similar, lots of similarities. The trunk space, I think on the Z06, it puts the battery in the back. There's a spot for it there. It's just an empty space. So it's built off that same chassis, but it's got the Cadillac flavor to it. One thing about this is if you get the V, usually, there's some models that have it, but usually you don't get the adaptive cruise control. Because you have this mesh intake for the supercharger, but there are some models out there that do have it. So if you get the V, you get the supercharger, but you lose the ability for the adaptive cruise. So opening up the trunk here, you've got lots of space. For an overnight, you got tons of space. But when you take the top down, it fills that with the hard top. So as long as you have your suitcase in there, you're good. You just can't put the top down. But here's how the top's allowed to go down. You have this carpet piece that goes in, and there's a little sensor here inside this plastic piece. Pop it in, and now the hardtop will be allowed to go in from a manual control inside of the cockpit. But that whole space gets filled with the hardtop in there. This space is what you have left with the hardtop down. If you're in the market and looking at one of these, one thing I highly recommend that you do is you pull up the carpet here on this left side, and then there's this little plastic GM piece that comes out. Get the carpet moved a little bit. Pull out that plastic piece, and then here is all your mechanics for your hardtop convertible movement. You got your oil reservoir, and the thing I would do is I would put my hand down at the bottom of this little tank here and just feel if you feel any oil. If you do, well, then you know that there's a leak. This is probably one of the things to give out over time from what I've read. There are places that can help you fix some of the components for this. So lots of cool YouTube videos. Check those out. But this is where all the electronics go for that. So this is an actual dealer handbook that they gave out in 2008. Jeff got this for me off of eBay, and it has some cool information. One of the things I want to highlight is this car, it has the 4.4 liter in the front, but then it has a transaxle in the rear. And the reason they did this was for the weight ratio. They wanted the 50 to 50 power or weight distribution in the car to have just better handling. Another thing that sticks out in this book, and it talks of several things, is this thing was made with balsa wood, and it comes with The frame is sculpted by water pressure, and it has all these different components, fiber, resin, layered glass fiber, so that it's super quiet. They wanted a car that was very, very quiet. And that's one thing I will say about this car is when you're driving it, it is a hot rod. It is a sporty car, 450 horsepower, and the power to weight distribution is very nice. It's a very small car when you see it in person. It looks big on camera, but in person, it's a very small, compact car. It rips. Like, it is just a very smooth handling car, but it's super quiet. You really do feel like you're in a luxury Roadster. And it should feel like a luxury cruiser, because here's the original window sticker with all of the standard equipment, and it is quite expansive. Lots of fun things on it. But here is kind of the selling feature for me. Like, I like telling people first. When they look at the car, they're like, oh, okay, cool. But then when I tell them, you know, the MSRP on this thing was $102,000. I round up. I usually say 103. They're usually like, what? That's crazy. Like, I don't understand. And then they start to understand that this car is very rare. They only made, I think, about 275 of the V's in 2008. So these cars are so rare. There was only about 2,200 of these things built over the 4 years that it was in production. And I'm talking about the V's. So that's the supercharger version. And really, that's the only difference. But there was only about 2,000 of these made. And for this particular year, 2008, I believe the number was close to 275 that were made. With this particular color combination and the interior, it was probably a lot less. This has the red tint coat with the cashmere with ebony accents. It came standard with a six-speed automatic transmission. It does have a manual mode where you can flip the transmission over, and it does select the ride height, or it changes the ride characteristics of the suspension into more of a sporty option. You can barely feel it. I think in 2008, I mean, it did something. So that was kind of a, whoa, it did something. But you can kind of feel it. It gets a little sportier. Here's the interior of this thing so you can see it. This is not a stock deck. This one has a rear camera on it, and so I've left it in there. The previous owner put that in. I have the stock stereo, so if I ever want to sell this car, I can sell that with it so somebody can put it back to stock. So that does give you a rear camera, which is nice. And then you can Bluetooth your phone to it, so you can listen your own tunes. But this thing is, it's a small, Roadster. But you do have plenty of room when you're sitting in it. The seat, you can't recline it, but you can move the bottom of it forward, and then you can tilt it back. But you don't have that much capability with the changing of the seats. What else is in here? You have your wood grain here, and this is really kind of fancy. Now, mine does have a few scratches here, you can see. You can replace this whole metal trim, but it does have a little indentation there. Not severe, but that's it. But this is the view from the passenger side, and when you fit in here, you fit pretty good. You kind of sit in a sweet riding position. It kind of makes your belly stick out, but hey, that's cool. So you do have one little storage compartment here in the back. If you push this, it comes out real fancy like. Turn it, and then you can open it. And you have this nice felt. Like, you could tell it's bougie in here. Real felt, nice little storage compartment. But also what this serves as is, if you take this little, these screws out, you can then remove this, and then you have access to manually adjust the hardtop, or at least bring it up or down manually without the button. You do have, as standard, you have heated and cooled seats. You have, dual zone climate. And it works really good. You actually, surprisingly, when you roll the windows up with the top down, you can change your climate, and it does keep you kind of relatively warm. And one thing that's really cool is when you're cruising down the road and you and your passenger are talking, you can talk flying down the road at 70 with the windows up and the top down. It's as if you're sitting in a nice car. Whoever designed the wind buffeting in this, it did an amazing job. It is so smooth. It feels like the roof's on. You don't get any like crazy wind. It really does just glide through the air. And that's one thing Corvettes do. I've watched some videos that say Corvettes, whoever took those to wind tunnels, did an amazing job because they just slip through the air. And one thing that's unique about this car that I love is you'll be cruising, and you know, it's not a Hellcat. You know, you're not buying it for Hellcat purposes, but when you're going 40, 50 miles an hour and you stomp on it, you're going to keep up with anybody. This supercharger, when it kicks in, you have a great amount of just speed at the once you're rolling. But when you let off the gas, it glides, which is one thing you have to get used to. You do not slow down. Like if I'm riding in any other car, you let off the gas and you start to slow down. Well, this one you let off and you hold that mile per hour for a good while, and you continue. I mean, you'll slow down, but it is not. You notice it, I guess, the first time you experience it. You're like, wait a minute, I'm not slowing down. Like, it just glides. Another thing it has is, just like the Corvettes of its time, there's no handle. It's an electronic button. You put your hand there and you push it, and then the door kicks open. So downside of that, or cool thing about that, is just kind of cool. You know, it's electric. Downside, if your battery dies, you can't get in your car. But they made a way to actually get into your XLR if that happens. And it's the same thing for the Vet. Down here, this little painted little hatch here, you pop that open, you slot your key in, turn it, it will kick your, it will allow you to open up your tailgate here, your trunk. Then you come in here, and then down here is a tab that you can pull. You pull that, and it will kick open your door. So then you can gain access to the car, pop the hood, charge the battery. Another interesting kind of fun thing about this car, you know, you could call it a downside. Let me close the trunk so you can see the shape of this body line here. This is super beautiful, the way that they did this. But your taillights here, the way they're integrated, I mean, that's true Cadillac right there. That is definitely not Corvette with your cool round headlights. These are straight up Caddy. Downside of that is, if you look on eBay, each one of these is worth thousands of dollars. I'm gonna guess probably $3,000 to $4,000, maybe even more. So if you break one of these, you're in trouble. Same thing for the front headlights, and I would say these things are even more expensive. This headlight, if you break it, you're gonna probably pay about $5,000 to $6,000. So if you find a used XLR, you could probably sell off the headlights and the taillights and get your money back if you ever wanted to. Cool thing that this car has, I've actually never used it because I hate the idea of just spraying the entire hood. But it has the headlight washer here. Cool thing about the headlights, though, is they are the feature where you can turn the wheel and they turn with you. So, and it is substantial. Some cars, you know, doesn't move that far, like the Lexus over there, the 2008. They move, but not that much. These, they move a lot. Like, you can, on a curvy road at night, you turn it, you get a very good display. All right, here's a cold start on the XLR-V. So here's the sound of it running. Now, I do have a resonator delete on this thing with a remote. So I turned it off so you could hear it in all its glory. But when you turn it on, it's just super quiet. It sounds like a Honda Civic. All right, so in here in the cockpit at your instrument panel, you can look through and you can see it's got the Bugatti-ness up there. But if you look, I got 48,000 miles on this thing. I'm not sure it's gonna show up on camera, but right here is where it's coming out, and you can see it right here. It's very clear. It's like a green crystal. Hopefully you can see it. Okay, cool thing about this transmission, it's a 6-speed. It's very smooth, very quiet. It handles things very nicely. If you bring it down here in the drive, you can move it over, and now you can use it as a flip transmission. So you can flip through the 6 gears, and what that does is put it in sport mode, or I don't know what they call it, but it changes the suspension so that it's more sporty when you're doing that, or you can just leave it in drive. Here's your traction control button. You can turn your traction control off, or you can put it in performance mode, or you can put it in your just back on. Here's your top button. When you click this button, the top goes back. You hold it the whole time. It takes about 30 seconds, and it's pretty cool when it does it. You have your Bose speakers throughout this thing. You got Bose here, Bose on the other side, and then in the headrests here, you have speakers. So when you're cruising and flying down the road, it actually sounds pretty good. All right, so here is the top coming off. So here's a good look at the car with the top down. And this is, you know, it's a beautiful car. Top down, it looks really cool. You can get a better view of kind of what it looks like inside from outside. But this is one of those cars, when you see it in person, and you see the body lines of it, because a lot of the camera images that I've seen of this car, it doesn't do it justice. There's a lot of, I guess, shape to this thing that is very unique. And when the roof is on, you get, it just highlights it more. I actually like the look of this car with the top on, which is kind of weird for a convertible. And you can see here the heads up display. Let's check out the hood, or under the hood. And there it is. The 4.4 liter supercharged Roadster engine. This car has a bad rap because there was an era in the early 2000s of the Roadsters having some head bolt problems, and you can get those fixed. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't heard that necessarily on the later models of the XLRs. They fixed it. So, kind of pleased with that. But, you know, I know that there's some Cadillac haters out there that will say, no, Roadster's trash. And I know, I've said this in past videos, I know a lot of people think that they should have put an LS in this thing. Maybe, but I mean, this thing's just cool. It has plenty of power. It can keep up with, you know, most things. And it's unique. It's a special, different car. It's not a Corvette. This thing was built in Bowling Green, Kentucky, at the same factory on the same assembly line as a Corvette. It's the only other car in the history of Corvette to be built alongside it, which makes that kind of cool and different. We were at a car show, I think last year, and I had the privilege to meet some of the Corvette people, and they were talking, and they were very Corvette-y, and Jeff was eating them up because he's a big Corvette guy. And I asked him, you know, hey, can I come and attend some of your events? I have an XLR. And they all looked at each other, and they were like, no, it's not a Vet. And I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, it's the closest thing related to it, but that kind of goes with my style in this car. Is I always like to get something different. You know, I'm not gonna go get an SUV. I'm gonna get an LX, you know, an old school LX. I'm not going to get a Jeep. I'm going to get a Bronco. I always do things a little different than the masses, and this is very different than the Corvette, I know, but it is very similar. So I really enjoy this car. I usually only take it out for date nights. When my wife and I are going to go out cruising and the weather is nice, we can put the top back because, like I said, you can have a full-on conversation. And it doesn't really phase you. Now, if the wind, there is a little wind, but you can get a little, like, kind of a plexiglass plate here. They sell those for several $100. It mounts here and it blocks any wind. Those look cool, but I just like kind of the stock look of this. I thought it looked pretty special. You can even get them, though, with like etching in them. It's a Cadillac or XLR, and then they can light up with LEDs. But I like the stock look of it. Cool thing on this car is it does have carbon fiber. This is the only place that I could find carbon fiber on the car. It's the frame to hold the license plate and your reverse lights. But yeah, carbon fiber. It does have reverse sensors here, but they don't work like every other car. Rather, there's a light that will appear here that will tell you if you're getting close to something. It'll go yellow, yellow, red. And the way you see that is through your rearview mirror. But that's it. That's your backup sensor that was a feature on this car. Let's take this puppy around the block so you can experience the XLR-V. Let's go windows up to cut down on the noise, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm even going to turn the air conditioner on. And I'm going to even cool my seat. I mean, that's what you do with the XLR. So we're cruising down the street and telling you the air conditioner, and you know, this thing's already warm, so the cooled seats are actually helping, even though I got the top back. So there's the view out the back. And here's the view out the front. All right, let's step on it. Let's see what it can do. Here we go. Bam, there's 60 right there. This thing, it hauls. And from 60 on, incredible amounts of power. But if you see what I'm talking about, I let off the gas as soon as we hit 60, but we're still holding at 53, 52, 51. It's not slowing down like any other car. It glides. And the suspension on this thing is so buttery smooth. I mean, it's just eating up these bumps. I have new tires. They're only like 6 months old. Goodyear assurances. I know they're not very sporty, but they really do give for a very good ride. And that's what I think this car was designed for, is smooth, but then having power. It's not a drag racer. It's not a Hellcat. It's not even a Vet. It's a Cadillac. All right, here we go. We're going to punch it. See what happens. Let's wait for this car to pass. Then we'll punch it. This is a roll from 15 miles an hour. Bam. There's 65. I let off. And I will coast. I'm still going 64. 63. All right, so here's the backup sensor right here. When you back this thing up, you'll see the light will come on. There it is. Boom. Okay, that's my warning. And that's my, oh, you're getting close, and that's my, wait for it. Oh, that's my, you've gone too far, the red light. Or that's stop. But that shows up in your rearview mirror for you to see. All right, so let's do the top. I'm gonna hit the top. That's what it looks like from the inside. It's really cool. The windows come down automatically. Hatch opens up, and here comes the magic. That separates from the bumper, and then here comes the roof. And it just automatically seals. Boom, nice touchdown. If you look through here, you got the trunk lid that will fold down, and it will give you a signal that it's done. And if you hit the button again, it rolls your windows back up. A way to decide if, from a distance, if you want to know if one of these is a V or an XLR, is if it's a 2004 to 2000, actually a 2006 to 2008, you have this hood scoop here. That was for the supercharger. But a 2009, the last run production, instead of building two different hoods, Cadillac just built one, and they put it on all of it. So you won't be able to tell there. The 2009s also have I think it's a fake. I've never seen one in person, but I think it's a fake kind of a windscreen here, or intake that goes on the side here. That was only on the 2009s. So if you're trying to decide if this is a V or not, look at the hood. If it's scooped, it's a V. But if it has the windscreen here, well, that means it's a 2009, and then it's hard to tell because they put that on everything in 2009. Here's the different color variants that came on this car. You could have got the Alpine white, and then you got black raven, you got Electra blue, you have the light platinum, kind of silvery, and then this car is the crystal red tint coat. Then you have Goldstream, and then liquid amethyst. But that is the Cadillac XLR-V. It's unique. If you're interested in it or have any questions, I've been doing research over the last year and a half as I've owned it. I'm following along with everybody else. It is a cool car, but if you have any questions, hit me up or comment, and I will try to get to you. But hopefully you enjoyed this little in-depth, closer look at the Cadillac XLR-V. Have a great day.